Colin P Clarke is a senior research fellow at the Soufan Center, and he joins us now live from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Good to have you on the program. What does the Taliban of
Thank you.
today look like compared to 20 years ago when the U.S. invaded Afghanistan?
Well, certainly the Taliban is riding a wave of momentum. We can say that for sure. This is a battle-tested, innovative insurgent group. Although I will point out, as effective as the Taliban has been as an insurgent fighting force, there are a lot of questions remain as to whether this is an organization that's going to be able to effectively govern Afghanistan.
Yeah, and that was my question. I mean, are they prepared to not only govern but provide security to the people of Afghanistan?
I don't think so. We'll find out very shortly. But just based on some of the events of the past several weeks, I think the Taliban's going to have its hands full with the Islamic State Khorasan province (ISKP). We're also likely to see foreign fighters flocking to Afghanistan, in some cases to reinforce the Taliban's allies, Al-qaeda, potentially the Haqqani network, but in other cases to join the ranks of the Islamic State. I expect that group to receive an influx of foreign fighters, which could slightly change the balance on the battlefield.
Yeah, do you see ISIS-K, also known as Daesh-K, trying to exploit the security vacuum in Afghanistan now that U.S. forces have left? And what would an ensuing civil war potentially look like?
Yeah, I think we could very well be entering a new phase of this conflict where ISIS is never going to be strong enough to usurp the Taliban. ISIS is never going to take over the country, but ISIS doesn't need to do that. They can effectively play the spoiler role by launching sporadic high-profile attacks into Kabul and attempting to carve out sanctuary or safe haven in Nangarhar or Kunar province among traditional ISIS strongholds and recruit among the hardcore Salafis in that part of the country.
We've heard the Taliban say one thing in peace talks in Doha, but then we've seen a completely different reality on the ground in Afghanistan. How can we even know the Taliban will keep its word when it says it will provide security and uphold human rights and women's rights?
Well, I don't believe the Taliban. I think the Taliban is essentially saying the right things that it believes the international community wants to hear. It's seeking recognition, and it recognizes that governing is hard, and it's going to need access to the international community, to money, frankly. And if the Taliban acts like the Taliban, that's unlikely. I mean, I'm expecting human rights abuses. I'm expecting the Taliban to essentially revert to the draconian nature that has governed it for a very long time. A tiger doesn't change its stripes, and the Taliban won't either.
Yeah, and as we see U.S. Forces leave for the last time, I mean, what role do you think the U.S. and international partners might play in the future if we do see the Taliban not uphold its promises in that regard to security and human rights?
I don't see under the Biden administration any scenario where the United States sends troops back in. The administration essentially rolled the dice here and banked on the fact that Americans at home, I think this is driven by domestic concerns, want no part of Afghanistan. So no matter how bad things get, it's going to be a situation where the administration washes its hands. What could we see if the threat level increases exponentially? Probably more of what we saw just this week, which is drone strikes and the like. But again, the U.S. has very little leverage now in Afghanistan going forward, is going to have very limited intelligence. And so we're likely to see other countries getting involved, all the regional powers, Iran, Russia, China, Pakistan, India, and some Central Asian states as well.
When the U.S. came in 20 years ago and removed the Taliban from power, and then 20 years later they're leaving with the Taliban back in power, how much pressure from the American public is there likely to play in the U.S.'s future role with the Taliban as a government?
Well, I think, Americans are war weary. We're coming up on the 20-year anniversary of the attacks of September 11, 2001. We've got a lot of issues domestically, including COVID-19, This administration's got an ambitious agenda with infrastructure, with countering climate change. And so I think there's going to be very little appetite to deal with anything Afghanistan related. I think foreign policy writ large is going to be put on the back burner during this administration, unless, of course, we see some kind of major international crisis, which, is totally possible.
All right, we'll leave it there. Colin P Clarke joining us from Pittsburgh. Thank you, Colin.